Hey, what's up, YouTube? This is Mirage, or you can call me Tony. Um, and I'm coming at you with another video. There was some positive reception to the last video, and one of the comments was actually by, I think it was Meow Ryu 2. I'll shout them out in the description. They recommended I talk about the motif of the night in Blade's work. Now, I've tried to film this video a couple times. The problem is this is actually a really dense topic. I was thinking about doing it a few times, and I was like, wait, did I get all of the references to the night? Because this is something that Blade has kind of been mentioning since the beginning, and that's kind of what I want you to see. Is like he starts off with this idea, and he kind of like adds onto it until you can draw more and more interpretations of it. And I will say, with a lot of these motifs, it's like purposely vague, and it's vague for a reason. I think anyone can come out with an interpretation of what this means. This is just my personal interpretation. So just as a preface, right? But the first reference we see to the night, at least that I know, is in Ever Since from So What. And what does he say? He says, I'll survive a snake bite, I live in the late night. And again, right off the bat, we get this idea that the night is not associated with good. It's associated with bad. Like he's surviving a snake bite. Maybe someone backstabbed him, like a friend backstabbed him. Maybe someone betrayed him. Or maybe it's like alluding to like a snake, like in a Garden of Eden type of sense. Like in any case, he's connecting the night with darkness. He's connecting the night with evil. And he's also connecting it with his substance abuse, right? As we can see in the lyrics up here. And he says, after he's, has this in his throat and he's in the park, right? It says he's coming from the dark with my scars. So again, we get this connection of darkness with nighttime. So this is what I would say is like the holy trinity of this motif, is that you have nighttime, darkness, and substance abuse, right? All of these things kind of make up the night. And I think that becomes clearer as you look at more and more lyrics, especially when you look at it in order of how he releases it, right? He talks about the night in Rip Blade, which is an album in between Ever Since and Red Light. And what's he talking about? He says, 6 MGs, I feel like MJ. It's that time of the night. Gonna have the time of your life, right? So this is being very clear that, it becomes nighttime and Blade is going to engage in substance use or substance abuse, right? To the level, in this song, he's alluding it to the level of Michael Jackson, which is pretty crazy considering how messed up Michael Jackson was on substances near the end of his life. R.I.P. In this song, 50 Sack in My Sock, IDGAF, he just says he hits the night, So you could think of it as like him, like in the beginning parts when he's talking about the night, he is like referring it to more as a period of time, right? It's that time of the night. I live in the late night. Like this is a time where I'm existing, and I'm engaging in this, in either evil activities or substance use or both. But then when we go into D&G, he introduces this idea of eating the night, you know? So this is where he adds on another layer. So what does it mean to eat the night? Well, the way I kind of think about it is like digesting something. Like when you're digesting something, you're absorbing all its nutrients, and you're like kind of establishing control over it, right? So if the night is when he is if you're looking at this from the idea that he's using substances, he's absorbing all the highs or nutrients of these substances, you know. But it's interesting here because it says like no life left. So obviously he's alluding to the fact that this isn't good for him, right? And you could also interpret this, if you don't want to go that route, if you don't want to, even though I feel like that's the clearest route to take, is the connection between substance use and the night, you could go the route of just saying like he's consuming the darkness that's inside himself, which I actually think is a really interesting interpretation. You know, when he's eating the night, if the night is darkness, the night is evil, and he's eating it, it's like he's, you know, taking control of it and absorbing it. But we'll see where that leads, right? In red light moments, he says, if I can't eat the night, I'ma let it eat me. So right off the bat, or not right off the bat, but in this album, you can see the progression, right? It starts as a place he just exists, like in time, like I'm live in the night, you know. It's that time of the night, right? And then it evolves into like this darkness that he has to like take control of and consume, you know, and like and it's like a losing battle, because he says if I can't eat the night, I'm gonna let it eat me. So if I can't control my darkness or my substance use, you know, I'm gonna let it control me, you know, is a way you can interpret that, right? So you can see it's like we have the motif of the night, and then we have eating the night, you know. And it progresses in working on dying. I'm trying to find, oh yeah, it says when the night calling I might fall in, right? So now he introduces this layer that the night is calling him, you know, it can actually like speak to him. I might fall in. The speaking to him is something he expands upon. I'll show you later, but I just think it's interesting that he's talking about addiction, right? He's talking about feeling like he has to keep coming back to this ritual of doing substances, right? And it's like, you know, it's powerful, like it's reeling him in. That's why he says I might fall in, you know, falling back into the darkness of the night, you know. And he says night call, you know, I pick up, wanna hear you whisper, you know. So he's alluding to the fact, like, first he introduces the night, you know, then he introduces like that he's trying to take control over it, and now he's introducing the idea that he is communicating with the night, you know. So it's like, what does that mean? It's like he knows this dark part of himself exists inside himself that causes him to do stuff like substances, you know, and he's like trying to, you know, reason with it almost, you know. At least that's the my understanding, right? In Close by Blade, this is off Ice Dancer. He says eat the night like an edible. So if you weren't with me, if you thought I was like trying to stretch out the interpretation, this is being pretty clear, right, about what the night is, you know. But it's interesting because it's like if you want to just take out substance use from it, you can still look at it as like eating my inner darkness as like a consumable, you know. That's a way you can interpret it. Here I think this is when you start to get towards like the later part of the discography is where you start to see more of the reasoning. Like we already established he talks with the night, but he starts to he starts to reason with it more. And what I think is that he's trying to like reconcile the fact that it's a part of his life and not just cutting it out. Like he wants to keep it, you know. So in Exeter off Wonderland, he says, I go in the night just to make it work out, you know? So it's like he's saying that this is something I have to engage in so that I feel okay, you know? I have to engage with the darkness. I have to engage with my substance use, right? I think that the perfect interpretation of this would be in, or what I mean to say is that the conclusion I'm coming to, that he's trying to like reason with the night, reason with the darkness inside himself, that's kind of explained here in Sun, which is off Good Luck, where he says nothing's wrong, nothing's broken in the night with the sun, you know. So if you're just taking like that's why I think you have to look at all the other songs in order to like get to this interpretation, right? Because if you're just looking at this song, it's like, what does that mean, in the night with the sun, nothing's broken, you know? Typically there's no sun at nighttime, you know. But if you're viewing it through the lens of how he's introduced the motif of the night all the way up until now, it's like, oh, nothing's broken in the night with the sun. He wants to create a reality where he can have his darkness, you know, the night, where he, you know, engages in substances usually, you know. He wants to have his cake and eat it too. He wants to have that with the light, with the goodness, with the sun, you know. And he's trying to reconcile this relationship that he has inside himself, you know, between in Hotel Breakfast he says angel or demon, maybe, you know, these two conflicting sides of himself. So I think like the connection you have to make is the night equates to darkness, you know, and then you have to think of the darkness versus the light in that paradigm of good versus evil, right? Because when Blade introduces a motif, like, he loves to play around with it, and he loves to be intentionally vague. But I think if you look close enough, you can see, like, oh, Blade is actually telling us a lot about his personal experience, right? And so that's why he says can make two into one, you know? Now, you could view this, you know, from a completely different lens if you wanted to. Like, you could say, like, oh, make two into one, like he's talking about his relationship with a girl or something like that. Like, he's trying to make, you know, like an ultimate connection, become one person, you know? But if you look at it through this other lens, which I just explained, it's like he wants to go, from the same album, he says he wants to go in the night with the sun, make two into one. He wants to take the darkness from, you know, the night, and the goodness, the light that's inside himself, and marry them together, and that makes Blade, right? That's what he wants to happen. Like, he doesn't always want to be fighting his inner demons, right? And yeah, so when you go into Ego Baby, he says, I tried to tell them about the night, they didn't understand. I tried to show them there's beauty and there's magic in the air. They didn't understand there's shadow in the light. Open up your mind. There is no day without the night. So he's kind of like referring to this yin yang ideology, right, where like goodness and evil are intertwined and they cannot exist separate from one another, right? So if you just replace goodness and evil with light and dark, you know, darkness and lightness, you know, that's the imagery that Blade's playing with here, right? And that's why I think he's pretty clear in this stanza here that he is actually connecting all these things. It isn't just a stretch, you know, to say that, oh, the night is actually Blade's inner darkness or inner evil. You know, even in his recent song One in a Million, like he says, evil things spin around my head, you know, or in my mind. In Hotel Breakfast, he says they spin around his head. Yeah, so kind of the last two I want to talk about when it comes to the night is this one. You know, he says, in the night and I'm lost following an evil star. So this is off of Cold Visions. Like, I don't think you can get any more clear than this, as like the, you know, when he's in the night, he's following darkness, you know, he's following something that's evil, you know, an evil star. Yeah, so to wrap this up, I do want to say that I don't think Blade is intentionally trying to glorify his substance use, although I think he ends up doing that maybe unintentionally. He's just trying to he's being authentic about it, and he's just trying to like paint it in a very poetic light. So I would refrain from saying that's glorifying it, you know. I would just say that he is, you know, as a true artist who goes through struggles, you know, he's being authentic and true to himself about, you know, the stories that he writes in his lyrics, right? And we see in this song, you know, what is Blade's main message, right? He says, having issues, man, it really isn't fun. It will have you dumb. It will have you messed up. It will have your reality pale. So, yeah. But so it's like, don't do this, you know? But the interesting takeaway is like, he's like, but I have this darkness in myself. And so I gotta kind of like, you know, reconcile it somehow. I have to like live with it somehow. So yeah, so that's the motif of the night. I think it connects to a lot of other motifs. There's obviously more I could have said. I'm trying to like keep these videos not super long. But the motif of the night, this is a big one because he's been talking about the night for you know, all the way, you know, up until now. He's still talking about the night, even in Cold Vision. So yeah, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like, and also hit me up with any of your ideas that are in your head as well. Peace.